And comments from public. We have one member of the public online. JT, are you interested in making comment? If so, put up your hand.
Oh, let me see. Should be allowed to talk.
Is it up?
Yep.
So no comments?
Nope.
Okay, ready to move forward. Minutes from the June 10th meeting, our last meeting. They were distributed. I'll take a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Is there a second? Yep. Second, any comments, changes, deletions, modifications? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next is the skills matrix. So this is actually going to come in handy at a later part of the meeting, because we will be able to, I want to talk about how we may be able to break ourselves down into some subcommittees with specific discrete activities that we work on. But I think it would be interesting for us all to take a look at kind of the skills that we make up. And then as we are looking to do more and more, are there areas where we may need additional skills? And it seems to me that we do have kind of gaps in real estate finance and legal. We've got, a person there, but if that person's missing that day or whatever. So, but that area, and engineering is one where we only have a single person. Tracy, I put you in there, and the reason why that is because that's where you're working. And, what I was looking for there was somebody who had, kind of the, Mariner's Way engagement. So that's why you didn't put yourself there. I put you there.
Yeah.
That's the purpose for that. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a chance to look at the makeup of your fellow committee members, how they self-determine their engagement. Hey, Chris?
So Chris has done everything is what I'm getting from the matrix.
That's why I showed up.
Chris?
That's my assessment of the matrix. Oh, excuse me, go get an engineering degree, please. Because you missed your X right here.
Uh-oh.
So we were just going over the matrix, just as a way to show folks who their fellow committee members are. But at our last meeting, one of the things that I think was an important step that Casey was pushing us all to be kind of just beginning the conversation about is, before we get too deep into the woods and the details about all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about later on the agenda, just an opportunity to stand back, the 5,000 foot. What do we think about redevelopment options? What, based on the work that has been done by Camoin, based on our own experience of being in town, being able to just reflect a little bit about what we think would be potential redevelopment options there that ought to be at least pursued. And so I'm going to let Casey kick it off, but she's not here yet. So we will, anybody else who is interested in chatting about it first?
So you're talking like a vision?
Not so much a vision as much, let me tell you what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm thinking that one of the things, or as I've listened to Tracy the other day, it really struck me when you said that you had people coming from as far as Pennsylvania to come to your store. And thinking about how we would want to have Mariner's Way be different from the other retail that's going on in town. And this is going to be sledgehammer, but you'll get the idea. we've got an area of town, on the west side of town where there's a lot of the, kind of what I'll call the national retail development. And then we've got, our beautiful Main Street where we've got some, unique development, some of it local, but there. And so what could Mariners Way offer if we were going to have kind of a retail component there? And my thought was thinking of it, what does destination retail look like? Not destination retail like Cabela's. You know what Cabela's is. I'm talking more about destination, like what's unique that would draw people from clearly outside of town, maybe even outside the region, to want to come to. I don't have an answer as to what that looks like, but I was just, you stimulated the thought that, yeah, that's different than what was going on in the.
I think there's potential there because it would have been prohibitive for me to even move into Old Saybrook had I not had the opportunity to come into Mariners Way. You know what I mean? Because it's obviously very expensive. Retail space on Main Street is very expensive. And there's, every place I called as I was looking, if they had a for lease or for sale sign, they said, oh, it's not available. Like every place, even when I had a realtor and everything. And so I think Mariners Way has a lot of opportunity. And I think for me as a destination place, my customers like that they're coming and they're seeing, ocean performance, and they're seeing boats, and they're seeing, and now that Custom Marine's coming down, and what's going on there, at least it gives us an opportunity. We chat a lot about the railroad bridge and what's happening there. So destination, I think, is definitely something that could fit there because.
Right. Right. So that's, as I, think about development options, that's one idea that I have. The other idea that I am keep kicking around in my mind is thinking about Mariners Way as this connection point between downtown and the river, between the bridges, whatever development's going to take there. Here from both the roadway as maybe then also any development activity that goes on there. Think of it as that connection. Again, 5,000 foot. You asked me details, couldn't give you details, but just thinking about it, that's kind of the flow. And interestingly, I was talking to Chris Costa earlier this week, and she sent me a study from. Actually, it wasn't a study, it was a application that the town put in 2017 for what was Mariners Way Boulevard. And I guess it was going to DOT for some funding, didn't get funded, but there was a set of streetscape designs and things like that. And, thinking about it really from all the way from the railroad bridge over, on the 154 and then down and past Gladeview. So thinking about kind of this whole connection. So anyway, that's when I asked this question about what are we thinking about at a higher level, those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I'd go this, I'm going I'm going further.
Further up or down?
I'm going further up.
Okay.
Okay. Well, forget height wise, but I, what I said last time, or before, the idea is we have the ability to connect Saybrook Point, and it's this wonderful thing going on down there, and there's mini golf and some public areas. Then there's residential as you come up, and then you work your way into downtown, and it does all kinds of things in downtown, from your fire department to your town hall to the Cape to a restaurant commercial scene all the way up, and we move down Route 1. You go up 154 to the dealership heaven, then you come down along Route 1. And to me, that wants to go down and around, and that wants to be the way to Essex. So I'm looking at this being at that kind of a connection.
Yeah, yeah.
So that you're looking at, on wherever we are there, 154 or whatever, bringing this all the way around, and because then you're looking at, potential mixed uses that this thing really needs. I know, people came and saw the boats. But that business, and again, it was, I think JT got the point. If Alexion had come in or and said, hey, we're building this, super duper high tech micro something, and we might have all just jumped in the river and said, yes, who knows? You don't know. But it would embed better and faster than selling a boat a year or whatever to get yourself there. But I think if we look at the bigger connection and how it all connects, I think it makes the overall attractive.
Right.
And again, when we're looking at the longer haul, I think that allows us to pick areas to do projects.
Wouldn't it be nice if people actually wanted to, and maybe they do, I don't know, but they actually wanted to get that on that part of Route 1, let's say they were coming from Mystic Market or whatever, and they felt like this was a great way to get to Essex and to see some things that were offered. And because I feel like there's always been a restaurant, and it would come around by the Quality Inn thing, and I feel like that area always gets second fiddle.
Well, yeah,
It's kind of disconnected,
Yeah.
but to actually have a sense of place where the road leads you.
and what's
Yeah.
interesting about, and then you talk about connectivity there, as you swing around there and you go underneath the interstate, that's where the pathway is to go across the bridge.
Go to the bridge. Becomes
Now all of a
Old Line.
sudden you're in Old Line.
Mhm.
So now when we look at this thing, let's go even bigger. So let's go from Saybrook Point, let's go off in all these directions. And again, multimodal, we're walking, we're on our bikes, we're looking at opportunities, bigger opportunities when you have, and when you stretch out, when you stretch out that canvas, then this can be there and that could be there, and this makes more sense over here. And that's where I think we can bring value.
Mhm, mhm. I agree. Casey, we were on number 5, where we're just kind of thinking out loud about development options. The conversation that you guys started on last time.
I think with the destination concept, though, having some kind of recreation, doesn't have to be town recreation, but it could be private recreation. Just getting people, like, I literally said it before, it's like you just go, people like to go places and have a few things to check off their list. They have certain shops they want to go to and certain activities, just want to do something for the day.
I mean, I do know there are husbands who drop their wives off, and then go to John Deere. Because if they don't want to be shopping for an hour, 2 hours. Yeah. Yes,
Especially if it's Christmas.
and it's on the same side of the road,
Yeah.
so again, that lends itself, but just to think, if they could walk to Mystic
they could
Market, or if they could
yeah.
walk to Ocean Performance without walking on people's yards.
Yeah. Good.
What about like footbridges and stuff, like, I think someone brought that up, like,
Yeah.
is that, how do you go about doing that?
These are, depending on whether you want to go to the road or whether you want to go to the railroad.
Right.
You're either dealing with state DOT or you're dealing with Amtrak. Nothing is impossible, though at least dealing with Amtrak gets pretty close.
Well, at least we have a bridge going over Amtrak right
Right,
now.
right. And there's been some talk along the way about not trying to get another bridge, but actually extending from that bridge, kind of hanging a pedestrian bikeway, not on the roadside, but on the other side. So
Okay.
they kind of use the infrastructure that's there without having to go to Amtrak and say, we want to build a bridge over the highway. So it's a possibility, and other places have done it. So at least it's, we have to learn how. how to do it.
And the other thing I think I may have brought up was if you go down to the point that's used in wetland areas. Which is again, it's difficult to do. I tried to do it in Mystic, I couldn't get it done. But they did it down here. And it's nice, you get down, people that don't enjoy waterfront. Get to see, again, a unique habitat. Have a sandwich and, or read about the railroad history down to, from Hartford, I mean, that's all. It's like I was talking about, I think last time, do we have a hook? Do we have no pun here intended. Do we have an anchor for
Yeah.
Scotts? I know you don't want an anchor, but we have an anchor or something like that wants, it's not the preserve. It's not Saybrook Point. It's not Main Street. It's Mariners Way. We got a name.
Mhm.
What does it mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Right, and I think those are all. Doug, do you want to weigh in on this at all?
Well, I'm listening, of course, and, I agree with everything that's been said, but I don't think I can add anything right now. The only thing is like talking about like a pedestrian ramp or something. It's actually, I'm on another committee with Casey's father, who's a civil engineer, and he has designed ramps and tunnels and underpasses, so.
Bring them.
Yeah, that's what I said.
With him the other night.
Yeah, so walking from the train station over there instead of going up over the bridge and all the way down to the busy Mystic Market intersection. Off the top of the bridge, you could maybe have like a ramp
Yeah.
going down, but then it gets into maintenance and winter snow and safety and lighting and things like that, but you just gotta think outside the box.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, because connecting Mystic Market with the rest of the shops, I think is essential. And if, we're talking about the wetlands, like maybe there is well, if you want to access, I mean, it could be like a boardwalk on this side up through the marsh, because nothing's ever, they're never gonna let them fill it in. Like, it just nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
So maybe push for like a nice boardwalk thing that goes.
There's a little bit of high ground in the back of
There
that,
is.
right
You can
next,
take it.
right next to the, right next to the highway. If you had a boardwalk, I don't know.
The Harbor Management Commission is very interested in piggybacking off the work that the railroad is doing right now and having some kind of public walkway out there. They've gone so far as to go out there and check it out, and access point is sort of like the sticking place right now. They're trying to figure out where exactly the access.
Who's that, Park and Rec?
Harbor Management.
Harbor Management.
Okay, Harbor.
Yeah, and they've actually even brought it up with the railroad company on a couple of occasions. So, they'd be very interested in making sure that happens if it's possible, because coastal access is one of their goals.
Yeah, that the pier that they have by the boat launch is actually really nice. I'd never been over there before.
Yeah.
I don't know if people fish or what, nobody was there when I was there, but it's actually a wonderful spot.
Casey, you have anything you want to add at this point, or should we move on?
So,
Okay, so, in our discussions, it seems to me that we have kind of identified three, kind of key areas of what I would call, we need more information in order to be able to move things forward. One is in this whole, issue about soils testing and wetlands. Just what we were just talking about, what are the impediments to being able to achieve what we want to achieve? And I think that the soils and the wetlands, frankly, are probably two of the major impediments. Now, Chris and I have talked a little bit about the idea that if the soils become too much of an impediment, what are the alternatives? Is there some kind of central processing that could be done with wastewater that would allow for then development to take place without having to worry about on-site septic? To be determined. We don't need to go there until we know whether or not the soils are, can handle it or not. Doug was tremendous in following up with the folks at, the River Cog. And, turns out that a good amount of work has already been done on some, if not all of the properties along Mariners Way to be able to determine what the soils are. And also be able to make a recommendation as to, what kind of septic could be managed on key parcels. So they looked at the 35-acre parcel just across the street from Mystic Market that we were just talking
Mhm.
about, the wooded parcel there. They looked at the number of the parcels associated with Custom Marine. So we've, I think, have some very good information there. And what the feedback to Doug was that there was, this was just used in the Thrive report, but the folks who did this study may well have more information on the other parcels. So what we would need to do is reach out to them to be able to do that. Do you think I'm correct in what I'm saying here?
Yes, this map and each property is numbered and we get the reports for a number of those numbers, but we could just ask, Megan gave us the contact name for the other missing data. One thing I read in there was, some of the lots were contingent on what the water level was, underground. So even though they characterized the soils, there'd be a little bit additional. So yeah, just like you said, and the other key thing, and I should have thought of this earlier, but Susie Beckman, who used to be the economic development lead here, she's working for Rivercog now. So, I mean, I think she published like
Yeah.
2 or 3 of those, so. Yeah, so I told her there's no escape,
Right. Mariners Way will haunt you.
not till it's done. So great resource. So, and they opened it up to, they could maybe help us more. So need to set up a call with them. I think that gets into, are we gonna divide up into teams and
Right. So let's go through these others, and then we'll come back to the idea of teams. So then on the streetscape improvements, it turns out, as I mentioned, we've got this 2017 application. No sense I was gonna just log on and try to show you what the information was. Do you have that quickly available? Can you access your email and pull up what Chris sent us? If not, that's okay.
When you say it didn't get approved, was that a town thing or like a?
No, I
state?
believe the application was submitted, but I don't believe it was funded. It was part of, apparently the state had a kind of one-time grant for it that the town put an application. Kind of where, sorry about it. So
so the hard work is done, the application is there and then.
the application's there, the rendering of the streetscape, the options, I mean, it's not just one, there's like two or three options, and a couple of them that, how does, and it's the width of the roadway, or the right of way that the state owns hasn't changed. So these are all kind of options within that right of way. So, whether you want to have footpath, bike path right next to the highway, or whether you want to have, or right next to the roadway, or whether you want to have it with a 5-foot buffer in between, all of those options are, as part of this. That's kind of cool. So anyway, if Jennifer can pull up that, I can,
The only thing is when I do it, because this room is not set up same way as downstairs. Like I could have, from downstairs, I can dial right in
yeah.
and then I can share my screen with whoever is also offline, but I don't think I can do that from up here.
All right, don't worry about it. It's, what we can do is, we'll go to the idea that I was kind of kicking around, which is, what do we, we have a lot of work as a committee. And what is the best way that we could get this work done? We have a tremendous resource in Jennifer, who happens to have about 4 or 5 other hats. And so we can't really say, we can't be the bosses and tell Jennifer, okay, this is what we want to have happen, or, so we need to roll up our sleeves and do some of the work ourselves. So what I was thinking was we kind of create groups of 2, that if these, if the issue of soils testing and wetlands is kind of a priority for determining what kind of development can take place in Mariners Way, then that's a path that really needs work. If the idea of streetscape improvements is an ability to show the public that in fact we're making changes there, and make the right changes that allow for the development community to say, oh, look, stand up and take notice and say, we really want to be part of that. Then that is, I think that is a critical path as well. And then, as we've mentioned a couple of times, we really need, and in the email from JT Dunn that I shared with you, we really need to have a good dialogue with business and property owners out there about not only what we're doing, but what they're thinking, and be able to begin to integrate those as best as possible. So I see those as 3 discrete activities that, if teams of 2 could take on those activities over the next 2 to 3 months, and be able to then use our committee meetings to come back and say, okay, here's what we've done, here's the update, here's where we're going to go. And maybe the first thing to do would be in 2 weeks, just come back with a work, say, here's what we think are the steps we need to take in order to be able to move this forward. So how does that sound? Or does that work? I mean, it might be more than you signed up for when one of us talked to you and said, hey, would you like to be part of this committee? But I think it would move the discussion forward faster than having all 6 of us try to do everything.
No, I think it's a great idea, because I think what it does is at least 2 things, 3 things, but those 2 things is, one is you gotta show people something.
Mhm.
So you're showing them this picture. And I was always shows people pictures. They like pictures.
Yes.
So just show them pictures. So that pictures of progress. But as you and I began this whole process, this really is about infrastructure.
Mhm.
This is what this is all about. So, the way to think of wherever you want to start this thing, but I'll now agree that we're just going to look at this one little section we call Mariners Way, and not worry about how far we're going in which different direction. But it's a question of, soils. It's a question of, again, I think, I look in the back there and I can see the big hole where a centralized wastewater treatment facility we put in, no problem.
Mhm.
I mean, that type of conversation has to be had. So we don't worry about the fact that, nobody needs to go down 8 feet for a septic system, or 6 feet or whatever. If I've got 5 feet, I'm just gonna run the pipe across the street and run like gravity, take it down. So that conversation, the wetlands, we're on an island down there, basically. And I think that's point 1. I'd like to be involved with that.
Okay, good. Other comments that people have? If not.
I agree, it's a good idea to divide and conquer.
Yeah, I think also
Some
it
Bonaparte.
allows us to sort of go down parallel tracks, because some of these things I think sort of in their nature need to happen at kind of at the same time. And I think as a committee, we can't
Bless you.
do them all at the same time all together.
Right.
So I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think these are sort of the three things that we've been talking about most, and I think these are like they make sense as the first foundational steps, and then, and then maybe we have a second round of, depending on where we.
Yeah,
go
no,
from
no,
here.
right, I think this, I agree with you. This is only the first piece, and if it works, we'll just keep working and working and working. All right, so let me ask you, I could make assignments, or I could ask for volunteers. It sounds like Chris has volunteered for the soils and wetland side. Who do people want to choose up which area they want to work in?
I mean, I would be probably good at either dealing with the business and property owners. Streetscape improvement process is definitely out of my wheelhouse. I'm like visually can kind of think of what I would want it to look like, but I don't know how to go about it. I mean, I could team up with someone and give me assignments. I'm good at that. But I also talking to business owners, it's like, that's very easy for me to talk to people. So that's what I kind of do for a living. So I don't do a lot of commercial, but like,
Right.
it's just in my wheelhouse
Why don't we have you do that with the neighborhood,
with the neighbor.
you and the neighbor?
Yeah, I mean,
That makes sense.
Sounds good. Casey, Doug,
Well, I'd probably be into the soils testing.
good.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so Casey now work on streetscapes. You guys got soil testing or wetland. You guys have the neighbors. Working on those.
and it says developers as well. We'll just start with the property owners.
Yes,
first, and then
yeah.
just see what everybody's thinking
And so one question I have, and what is absolutely wonderful, I did not know until Jennifer sent me an email earlier this week. I've been in the public sector for most of my working life and have lived under the public sector's freedom of information laws. And I have, I think, a very good handle on freedom of information. Coming to this town, there was at least one individual who I believe was wrong, but was wrong loudly about the idea that it is, in my mind, a quorum of a group like this constitutes a meeting that has to be publicly noticed, et cetera, et cetera. When 2 out of 6 are talking to each other, that is not a public meeting and does not constitute something that freedom of information requires. Interestingly, we have the Freedom of Information Commission coming next Monday night to Old Saybrook. And so I plan to attend and to clarify that fact so that everybody knows that if you guys are meeting with a bunch of business owners, that's not a public meeting that needs to be publicly noticed on Zoom and all of those things. Now, it can be, that's a choice, but particularly when you talk about developers, I'm having some private conversations with developers just so because this is outside of my wheelhouse, understanding better what the development community would be looking for in order to allow for something to happen. And so, but these are not conversations that they would necessarily want to have as public conversations. So I think it's important to be able to make sure we're staying within whatever the law says, but extracting as much information as we can. And I can certainly come back and say, without attributing to X and Y and Z, say, hey, look, this is what I'm hearing from the development community, be able to make that happen. So that's but I want to make sure that I'm right. Like I said, it's what I've lived for a long time, but I still want to make sure. And the other side of it, of kind of next steps, is I think we should plan on inviting at least the first selectman, if not the board of selectmen, to one of our upcoming meetings. I think maybe the next step for us would be for each of the working groups, working duos, I'll call them, to think through what a work plan would look like. Then we'd have the Board of Selectmen come in, because we're working really for them, and be able to say, this is what we're thinking of doing. And not so much that we need the imprimatur as much as if there's a red flag that they see that we don't see, they can at least give us that, or they can give us the yellow flag.
Yeah, one suggestion, and I think it was brought up last time, was do we take that field trip, as a group down there, before we sit down with the selectmen and just, we'll have our group meetings, come up with our plan and all that stuff, but get all of us collectively get our eyes on the place so we have a better feel. That might make more sense. Then we come back and then we can meet with those guys.
Yeah, Jennifer, who would be a tour guide for that?
Well,
Is that
Chris
Chris
has
maybe?
the most background on everything that's happened. She and I have toured like all the Thrive people and different developers down there. So I can see if she'd be available to accompany the group.
I think that would be great. I think it's right. I think you're right. And when you've done that, time frame about an hour of time, what is the?
So we've never done a walking tour. I mean, we've driven and stopped at different places, so I guess it depends on how you want to structure the tour.
I'm thinking it'd be more than an hour. I mean, there's a lot of areas
Yeah.
and properties and
So are you envisioning walking, or are you envisioning being?
like Jen said, drive here, get out, walk where we
Okay.
can, get back in, all right, go somewhere else. A lot of it's private land, so maybe
Yeah.
there isn't that much to see, but, Chris, you mentioned to me, I went by the train station, just parking back there, looking down, and he said, walk down the track. And I didn't do that yet, but I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
Just walk right down the track and look over the track at the back of the properties, and that would take a while.
Yeah.
But it'd be worth it, not on 100-degree day, but.
No.
I mean, it might be good to put together like a little bit of an itinerary. These are definite spots we want to
Yeah.
see. And then, once you're down there, if you say, oh, well, actually, that looks really interesting, but if there's specific spots on the tour that you want to hit, then, I could prepare Chris in advance, and also we put those on the agenda specifically.
All right, so why don't maybe you and Chris and I had to think through a preliminary itinerary and time frame. We'll get that out to the committee. People can contribute, other stops that they think, and then we can look at what, maybe we take one of our meeting days and we just say, rather than meet, we'll do the tour and do something like those, so we don't have to keep plugging out days.
We can get scrapbooks and go to Mystic Market.
So, but with so much of it being private property, like, how do you? I'm trying to think, are there little roads and inlets we could go in that?
We have Rome Tree. Is Rome Tree private? I think Rome Tree's public. So you got Rome Tree that, goes back up into where the custom marine area is, and so that gives you a sense there. You've got, you've got the road, it's the road that's right across from you, right?
The Boston Post Road Place.
Well, I was thinking, well, the Boston.
Oh, Jade Court is
Yeah.
across from me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That takes us back. to
Absolutely,
the
we
back
go
of
in
the-
there,
Yeah, yeah, being able to see that. So I think there, and that, also exposes us to a number of businesses that are there, because there's a lot of businesses that are either in multi-use buildings or whatever. So it gives us a good sense of what these businesses would be.
I mean, and a lot of the places have parking lots. I mean, we don't necessarily have to,
Right.
we pull in, and
Yeah.
we don't have to be, really obtrusive to
Yeah.
existing places.
No, we're not going in buildings. We're just trying to get a lay of the land and help connect the dots.
So I did one of these on another committee and we got I think it was like a trolley bus, something like the free, the ride share van that drives around town. So that's just an idea too. I don't know where the trolley bus came from. It might have been Clinton or Westbrook, but
If it wasn't
we all
summer,
fit.
we could probably get that. I don't know if we
Yeah.
could get it during the summer though, because they use it to like go back and forth from Clinton to Hammonasset. But it's cheap for a town to rent it. It costs almost nothing.
Yeah, I think we did our trip in the summer. So.
Yeah, because I've rented it at
So-
Christmas for our event before.
As far as permissions, like the B and L property, I don't know if they own it or they just use it. It's like a big laydown area. I mean, they told me I could just drive down. I was
Yeah.
looking for boulders or something, but it might be good to give them a heads up.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
that's
it
right.
goes to our duo on the business and property owners. That could be one of the first things to say, hey, look, introduce this committee and say, here's the fact findings, so don't be surprised. This is
Are you envisioning that after we each group develops, just because I think it would be helpful if we can, if we're like consistently kind of circling back and saying, and like reporting back and saying, here's where we are, and then it gives us the opportunity to ask questions like, what does the group think about this? Or like, we're not sure about this, or whatever it is. So are you envisioning that like we would all develop a work plan and then kind of bring it back to the group, like here's where we're thinking we're going, and then,
Right.
okay.
Right, exactly. And so that with kind of here, and here are the steps that we think we're gonna be taking. So then what, then there's an accountability. Okay, so now we have a work plan. You come back 2 weeks later, anything happen? No. We can, so begin to work it that way as well.
Do you have like a contact list, like contact information for all these things? I mean, you know some of the people, but like an actual list of businesses
I
for that
have-
area?
I have for a good chunk of,
Okay.
yeah, so I can get that.
Well, because you sent out the letter before the combined thing, right?
Yeah, yep.
So this is our last meeting that we scheduled, because we said, let's do this every other week through the month of June, and then be able to look at what's the right schedule, particularly going into the summer. With the idea of these kind of working duos, do we want to go to a monthly meeting? Do we want to stay with at least bi-weekly on the calendar? And if there's no activity, we can always take it off. What is the committee's pleasure?
What's 2 weeks from today?
The 8th of July. So July would be the 8th and the 22nd. And then August would be like
That's 19.
I'm not one for lots of meetings, but if we only did it once a month, that's 6 meetings by the end of the year, which does not sound.
Well, I think as long as we're doing I think what
Our
we do is
teamwork.
meet the 8th, that's right, said, and present our plans,
Mhm.
make sure we're all on the same base. Then we've got our work to do.
Mhm.
And really to come back in 2 weeks with the work we have to do, because we're not gonna have
Yeah.
enough to talk about, I would suggest.
Yeah.
I would hope. And so we come back a little bit later.
And then maybe if we could go back to 2 weeks in the fall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If needed.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a
with
good idea.
The goal being, we'll be hopefully generating more information as we go.
Was it the 2nd and 4th that you guys have been meeting?
Right.
Because that's more how it works best for the calendar, not like. It's not always gonna be every 2 weeks.
Right, right.
Um,
So the 8th would be the second Tuesday. We'll plan to meet on the 8th. We will plan not to meet on the 22nd. And then what's the second Tuesday in August?
Well,
12th? So let's plan on the 8th and then the 12th. And then we can figure it out from there.
I will not be here on August 12th, just letting you know.
We cannot meet without.
So.
Who will run the Zoom?
So you'll have to find Larry. Okay, does that make sense?
So we'll do it, we won't do the 12th, we'll do like that.
No, we'll do it.
I'll do the 12th.
I won't be here the 5th either, so.
Okay.
Does
I can
anybody
always,
else have conflicts on those dates?
It's July 8th and August 12th.
Correct.
Not that I know of.
Oh, actually,
All right, well, do we want to go to the 5th?
want to say the 12th and then. Well, no, I mean, the 5th, I'm here. That works.
I just have to check and see what meeting space we have available.
Okay,
I mean, the 5th is 4 weeks from the 8th, so.
all right. So why don't we do? That's good. Ooh. No, we meet at 5:30. So I've got Board of Finance, 6:30. But maybe we won't have a Board of Finance meeting. Let's plan on July 8th and August 5th. And maybe what we'll do is invite the first selectman to the August 5th meeting. Because that would be a good, by then we'll have got some traction and, you know,
I won't be here for that one.
I
just
understand.
so you know. I can try and get a substitute, like clerk at least, to take this for you or whatever and get the Zoom going.
Yeah, I can handle the minutes if somebody can make sure the Zoom is working. Tell you, every time I walk into that Board of Finance meeting, Zoom's not on, my heart drops. Okay, other things that we can get done tonight?
This was good. Like,
Moves us forward. And, oh, I will, Chris had mentioned actually at our first meeting, something which I am now becoming more and more enamored of. And particularly as I was looking at the Thrive plots. Having something, well, I mean, almost like a war room, having something wall size that is the Mariners Way properties. And then, way I think about it, we can probably do it electronically, but I think about it just from a Mylar overlay, being able to say, okay, here's the wetlands. Here's the developable based on soils analysis. You begin to drop these layers, and then all of a sudden you end up with, all right, here are the 5 most likely developable properties to be able to do that. Do you think there's any starting point in town hall for something like that? Is that something that we'd have to send out to have made? I'm talking the first thing being just maybe it's an aerial of Mariners Way that's like 3 by 5 or something.
I mean, I think if we talk to, I think Torrance Downs does a lot of the GIS work for a land use department. I think he would probably be a good resource to talk to.
Is he working part-time for the town?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
I know Torrance.
Oh, do you?
Well, he was at River Cog a long time. And, yeah, he's a pro for information.
nice.
You love troves.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he would be good.
give him a t-shirt. I print Mariners Way t-shirts.
Okay, there you go. There's branding.
Right. That's what Jane was bringing. So we need
So do you want us to reach out to him and start a soils testing?
That would be
and
great.
wetlands mapping?
That's a great, right, it certainly fits,
Yeah.
it's right into that committee's work. Perfect.
I'm very visual too, so,
I- I-
and then we could do the yellow stickies or whatever.
I think we're all need to see more than this book
Right,
and that book and the other book and.
so I neglected, as part of our package, we have this, and
And Tracy, those are Tracy.
Oh, I was just,
And Chris did try diligently to send me images today, but I never got any of them for some
Figure out how
reason.
to, we'll figure out, I'll get them so that we can get them out to everybody.
Yeah.
that would be great. One thing that happened that, Lemon and Lemonade, I jumped on the highway to go to Madison Sunday. And, it was back. So I got off the highway and I drove pretty much all the way to Madison on Route 1. And about a mile into it, I said, you know what? This is really interesting from a Mariner's Way standpoint of, because different sections in different towns are differently developed. And some new developments and some old. And I need to go back when my brain is actually thinking it through, but I would suggest taking that drive because, again, I'm very visual and being able to see, okay, there is setback. There is areas where they have done nice landscaping along the highway, or along the roadway. So there's a lot of different places going to this idea of pictures. That's one of the things that if you see an area and say, hey, look at Clinton from X to Y, we can all take a look at that as well. So
What was the group, sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
what was the group that was doing the Route 1 corridor? It was like for Clinton, Westbrook and Old Saybrook. It was a big study they did like probably 10 years or more.
We have.
And-
looked on that,
Yeah, it was like the whole 3 towns and the civil engineers like made a whole plan of what like all the way up to, I don't know if it made it to Mariners Way or not, but it was, they even had whole plan for like the job lot in Old Saybrook, like what that could be.
really,
Oh, yeah, that's.
I never heard of
There's
that.
3 whole, it was called like some.
the
Route
tri-town
1
study.
Something, yeah, like Route 1 corridor and.
One corridor study, I think.
Study
that's what
like,
it's called,
yeah. And they had, like cafes and bike lanes and cafe tables and benches and sidewalks and it was all 3 towns.
Isn't
I
it?
went to several meetings about that, but nothing ever came of it.
I can see if I can.
There were, like,
get my hands
public
on that.
meetings.
Yeah.
It might be online, actually.
Yeah, it might be on the website. One of the things when I was year 2000, when I was on the Hartford Economic Development Commission, we had to do you know what a SED study is? A community economic development study. And it is taking the idea is you create this plan, economic development plan, but there's a tremendous amount of community involved. So there's like hearings after hearings after hearings, tremendous amount of input into it. And we had we're hiring a consultant. Well, I don't know how much you know about Hartford, but Hartford is a little bit like Mariner's Way in the sense of a lot of work's been done in studies, not much has been done in action. And so I said to the consultant, I said, look, I really don't want us to do anything other than take the last 20 years of studies off the shelf, look at what's the common themes in those, and let's do it. Let's come up with the action plan rather than the study. And so that was the beginning of ultimately a few different things that happened in Hartford. But I really feel the same way about this. I mean, I hadn't heard that, but there's but another study where we could just glom onto some good information and be able to incorporate it. So
That was kind of inspiration. I definitely was around the same time as the beginning of this because I was so interested in all these ideas and I just never.
Old Saybrook Route 1 corridor story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the land use website under
Okay.
plans, studies, reports and initiatives.
okay, we'll take a look at it.
It is from 2005.
Okay. that-
Time to get ready.
And can we see that
20
Mariners
years
Way Boulevard?
Yes.
I bought my house in
I
two
I'll
thousand
send it,
six.
I'll send it back. 55 pages, but I will identify the 15 or so pages that, so you don't have to go through them all 55.
I'm sorry, where was the study found?
If you go to the land
Land
use
use,
department, under the, yeah, their plans, studies, reports, and this.
You know, you could probably actually go to other towns and cities and look at all their plans too. I mean,
Like, how far do you want to go? Take a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you all very much.